It's time now for Voices of the Region, when we hear from an area journalist about stories making news. This week, our guest is Marshall Helmberger, publisher of the Timberjay News in Tower.
So this week, we're checking in on Wes Johnson, who operates a 1,500-acre cattle ranch in a remote region north of Orr. For years, Johnson has lost several head of cattle every year to wolves, typically his calves, born in May. He runs a big ranch by the standards of northern St. Louis County, where open range larger than 100 acres or two is a rarity. And his ranch is uniquely located in the heart of the densest population of gray wolves in North America. Not surprisingly, it's been ground zero in this long-standing battle between ranchers and wolves. But that's all changed this year, thanks to an experiment launched 2 years ago to study the impact of a wolf-proof fence on the operation. We spoke to Johnson late last week, and he said he's had no issues with wolves during this year's calving season, and that his cows are a lot calmer than they ever used to be. The fence, which extends 7.5 miles encircling Johnson's ranch, is a joint experiment hatched 2 years ago by stakeholders who all had something to gain from a permanent solution to Johnson's wolf problem. Both state and federal agencies, including the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Wildlife Services, were expending taxpayer resources each year. The state dollars went for reimbursement for lost cattle, and since 2005, the reimbursement fund had paid out about $150,000 for losses at Johnson's ranch. Meanwhile, Wildlife Services paid for federal trappers to trap and kill wolves on the ranch, sometimes deploying them for weeks at a time. Since 2005, federal trappers have trapped and killed at least 80 wolves from Johnson's ranch. That not only cost money, it had an impact on the wildlife research that was being done by the Voyageurs Wolf Project. We're also reporting on the continuing fire danger across northern St. Louis County. We did get some relief earlier this week in the form of thunderstorms, but with continued hot temperatures and an extended forecast of below normal precipitation continuing through the first half of June, it's looking like fire danger will continue to hang on. Fire officials say it's starting to look a lot like summer of 2021, when intensifying drought helped spark wildfires all across northern Minnesota and northwestern Ontario. We've already had a 20-acre fire just west of Ely this past Friday, but firefighters jumped on it quickly and were able to get it under control, despite a red flag warning that was in effect at the time. We had extreme fire danger throughout the Memorial Day weekend, which was the hottest and driest in many years in the region. We'll be continuing to watch fire conditions throughout the summer. We had a chance to talk nursing homes with the director of the Boundary Waters Care Center and 2 local lawmakers who stopped by the nursing home facility here in Ely this past week to discuss progress made in the last legislative session. As we've discussed before, the nursing home had faced a critical cash crunch earlier this year, and it indicated they would have to close their doors if the situation wasn't resolved. They received some temporary financial help from local donations, from the public, as well as from the Ely Bloomington Community Hospital, and that helped to tide them over. But now the legislature has approved funding increases that should allow them to survive at least until a longer-term change to the state's funding formula for nursing homes can be adjusted. Those funding increases included a $12.35 increase in the daily rate paid to nursing homes for each patient in residence. The Boundary Waters Care Center will also see some additional money as a designated critical care nursing home based on its distance from the next closest nursing home, which is nearly 50 miles away. Senator Grant Hauschild was also able to obtain $750,000 in taconite funding through the tax bill that will allow Boundary Waters to keep up on needed building maintenance. That should free up some operating dollars as well, which had been spent on maintenance in recent years. But Adam Maslowski, the director, said the legislature still needs to do something to address staff wages, which remain too low to allow them to compete for qualified nurses and other staff.